Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. It's morning here at the Quackalope headquarters, and I've been diving into Tindaya by Red Mojo. Now, this game is available over on Gamefound right now. Link, as always, in the top of the video description. And this preview needs to start with the context that I still feel like there's a lot of play experience I need to dig in here. I've so far only explored the solo mode, and so multiplayer, cooperative, even the combative modes are things that I still know theoretically, but I need to take time to sit down with. And I'm hoping to produce some gameplay before the end of the campaign. It's got about 15 days left. I think this game is worth highlighting. That being said, I titled this video something along the lines of the spiritual successor to Spirit Island, and I was reading through a comment thread on another video, and someone commented it should have been called Tindaya, the Revenge of the Dahan, or something like that. If you're familiar at all with Spirit Island, you know that it is this colonizer. It's a game about spirits defending an island, defending the people, the Dahan that live there, and rising up against colonizers who are coming and settling on the island, ravaging it for resources and stripping it bare. And this, Tindaya, has a very similar feel and theme, while being a bit more tribalistic, a bit more violent, and it has some twists in it that I think some of you will enjoy. I really do expect that Tindaya, for me, is going to live on the shelf right next to Spirit Island. They thematically, aesthetically, and even mechanically resemble each other in some interesting ways. You see, Spirit Island is an escalating cacophony of chaos, right? As the colonizers spread, and you do your very best to work together as spirits, playing powerful cards from your hand to keep the powers that be from slowly taking over the landscape. And your win objective is to cause enough fear, chaos, or just destroy them off the map. Well, here, you're trying to survive. And you're actually playing as the tribe leaders here in this archipelago, the series of islands out in front of us. And you're actually going to be warring kind of against the spirits and sort of against the colonizers, and huddling to survive against both of them throughout the course of this game. This game is going to go through 3 eras where you'll take Euro-style worker placement actions, placing cubes down here on our little settlement board, which I'll go through in just a bit, moving across the landscape, gathering resources, building new locations, tribal factories, places where you can get things like pigs, goats, and other types of resources. You'll be producing goods from starting with basic meat, dairy, fish, all the way up to things like cheese and more advanced weapons or cooked meals that actually last for a little bit longer. And every cycle, you'll be sacrificing to the volcano gods, you'll be sacrificing to the prophets, lighting some of those resources on fire, doing your very best not to waste as much as possible, and you'll be incurring the wrath or the blessing of the gods. Now, it's almost always wrathful in some form. You see the Volcano Lord here is going to be spilling out molten ash and lava across the landscape, slowly covering different parts of the map with brand new terrain that brings with it shale and glass that you can harvest and utilize, but also destroys any villages, settlements, and potentially goats that happen to be in the way if I don't throw things across the board. There's this really cool tableau growth and aesthetic to the game, as volcanoes erupt and landscapes change, as hurricanes blow across, as the sea goddess herself raises storms that knock entire islands off the map, or, again, seem to destroy all the villagers and particularly goats. I haven't had a hard time with goats, I promise. I promise. They wanted to swim. It was a bad day. Okay, there was a volcano on one side, a flood on the other, and I couldn't save them. Okay, that's enough of my trauma. Every area you're going to be doing your very best to appease the gods. You're going to be handing in resources, giving them what they want, and this is going to be a driving force to escalating the game. You need to be as efficient with your resources and your management as possible, and while you can just ravage the land and collect it all for yourselves, you're actually hurting yourself in the process. This is an economic game that is all about taking just what you need, which I think is not only insightful to the theme, but also creates an interesting puzzle. I would love to pick up this little tile here because I definitely need an extra stone. But what I don't need is 2 more stone and an extra shale. What I specifically don't need is more forest, more wood, more items that are going to be just burned up. They're going to be wasted because that will raise the threat. That'll raise the anger of the gods, and the landscape will keep transforming. Now, not only am I going to be managing the chaos of the gods, I'm also going to be dealing with the fact that pirates and conquistadors are sailing onto the islands. They're landing, establishing their own safe havens, and going to war with me in some form. I have to lead with tribal leaders, villagers equipped with weapons in order to capture, imprison, and sooner or later, yes, sacrifice to the volcano the different conquistadors that I can get my hands on. Now, this does help prophecy and help you not only appease the gods, but also learn what's coming next. And the whole object here is to survive across 3 eras, with different wind conditions, different tribal leaders that you could have that start with their own variability of resources, different scaling levels that conduct how exactly the map will transform and where your threats are going to be coming from, and a modular game state where islands, locations, water tiles, and where things are spawning are never the same from game to game. On top of all of that, this plays solo, plays cooperatively, plays straight competitively like any classic Euro, and also plays with the idea of a betrayer in the mix. You see, I have this lovely set of cards over here that deal with someone turning their back on the village, deciding to side with the conquistadors and advocating for them to take over the land. It's an interesting twist that, again, I haven't had the opportunity to explore. But, with all that said, let's dive in a little bit closer here to Tindaya. And where else would I start but just a touch of flavor text? Because for me, this is what sets the foundation for games like this, for games like Spirit Island. So, Tindaya. The Canary Islands are synonymous with paradise, clear skies and endless beaches that seem endless. Dormant volcanoes and mysterious forests, but they were once the home to Imazine, people of North Africa who populated them for more than a millennium. In Tindaya, each player will take control of an Imazine tribe. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. You must help them develop, share knowledge and resources with other tribes, and survive the catastrophes sent by their gods. Acoran and Moneiba may be fearful when they're pleased, but terrible when they've not received their offerings, which will be increasingly demanding and may accumulate in human sacrifice. If they do not receive what they want, their wrath will take the form of volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, or earthquakes, so devastating that they may very well destroy their world. However, the Imazine have Tibian and Tamonete, 2 powerful seers who predict the future by interpreting the smoke from their bonfires. Through their prophecies, the players will have the opportunity to avoid misfortune, or, if they can't, flee to safety. So, let's talk about some of the core systems here. So first off, this board in front of me is going to be completely modular. Every piece slides and adjusts around, and you can build it in any happenstance or order with a few simple rules, like you can have volcanoes right next to each other. On top of that, the different volcano titles that will actually be flipped and active will change from game to game as well, and you can scale how many volcanoes are active to scale the amount of difficulty that you're going to be facing as you play. You'll then populate the board with islands, and then resources, camps, and villagers. The game plays with a starting set of tribes that each have their own custom specialization and custom starting resources and locations. This is going to be essential to the way that you play the game. Just like in Spirit Island, you're getting your gear and equipping yourself, this is giving you some sort of different starting condition. Down here on our board is going to be where we actually start leveling up and upgrading. This is much more of a classic Euro than Spirit Island is, and I like that shift in the mechanics here. You see, I'm going to be taking worker placement actions or action selection with these cubes here, and the cubes are going to be reusable resources. I'm going to be able to take them back at the end of every era and reuse them for more actions down the road. But the cylinders that I unlock as I get more advanced weapons and technology, the cylinders are going to be super powered single-use actions that allow me to take the effect of an action twice, which makes the resource management of the actions that I'm using Really interesting. Do I go ahead and take a double move to spread farther, collect more resources? Do I unlock 2 technologies at once, being able to pay the cost and spending one of these cylinders? Or do I save them when I really need to show down, get out of the way, or face off against some conquistadors? That's a question that you are challenged with for the duration of this game. Do I need the resources now? Do I need to spend them now, or will it be more beneficial later? And at what point have you waited too long before the game has escalated beyond your control? Now, the cool thing about this is when you're playing cooperatively, you're actually able to meet up with other tribes and trade technologies with them, getting the access to things like cooked fish, cooked meat, cheese, and it looks like cooked rice here. This concept of slowly sharing information feels very accurate and thematic, but also allows you to have a different game experience each time. In my experience, I've only really been able to master or get fully skilled up in 1 or 2 of these skills throughout the course of play. Now, granted, not all of those have resulted in me doing well, but it really is a struggle to spread across the ocean, manage all of the threats you have, and still level up your tribe and level up your own personal abilities. You have to decide what you want to go for and how you want to utilize them from the very beginning. Now, on top of that, you're going to be taking actions here, and each of these actions are going to give you access to producing things. And depending on where you have your workers, both your camp leaders and your actual settlement workers, you're going to get new benefits at the end of every era. Producing grain, going through a cycle where your goats give birth and then get burned alive. Going through a cycle where your pigs give birth, your humans populate, and you get more and more workers down onto the board, able to spread, able to proliferate, able to fight. You're also going to be collecting weapons like goat horns and shale that allow you to face off against the conquistadors and take them off the map, repopulating an area and redeeming it for the tribe, which is a fantastic feeling when you're able to do it. But when they pop up in different corners of the world, you have to make a decision. When do you go exploring? When do you go fighting? When do you try to manage the risk? And there's so many other little things you're trying to manage. You're trying to keep your settlement alive. You're trying to not overuse resources. You're trying not to underuse resources because your people will starve if you don't have what you need to feed them. You're trying to provide shelter, heat, fire, food, and protection. You're trying to make sure that this continent is not populated and conquered by, well, the invaders. You're also trying to appease the gods, which are a serious threat. There's a loss condition in this game that deals with them just destroying everything, and it's because you haven't appeased them from round to round. This is a threat escalation, a high and low min-max management game with a lot of cool powers and Euro abilities. It's probably one of the most thematic Euros I've played recently. Now, we have a few different boards and tracks over here. Like I was saying, our personal board here is going to be where you take the majority of your actions and really manage everything that's happening on your board and with your own kind of player experience. In a solo game, I'm just able to take every action that I want, but in a multiplayer game, we go through the rounds, everyone taking 2 actions at a time until everyone has exhausted their actions or decided to pass, which equivalently is the same thing. Now, you'll be able to take basic actions like movement, you'll be able to pick up and harvest resources that you're currently on, you'll be able to do information, trade, and produce based on what you have unlocked here. The movement rule is one thing that I want to highlight, though, because it's very interesting. I can move anyone anywhere as long as I'm on land, but in order to cross the ocean, I have to build a raft, and then I have to be able to move with any number of villagers. I think it's up to 5 can fit on a raft, can sail in a straight line from one direction to another. This makes movement really freeform when it comes to the ocean, but also a little bit of a tactical puzzle. Where does your raft get dropped off? What do you have access to after this? And how do you get over to the far edge of the board when you just don't have the movement necessary? Because you can't steer this thing. You kind of shoot it off in a straight line, and 5 of your villagers pop up on shore going, "Where are the pigs?" And you say, "Well, there are a few islands south." You just missed the mark. I like the movement. I like the way this game spreads. I also like the escalation of the management on your personal board. It does feel good when you're able to convert resources that otherwise would go to waste and infuriate the gods into something like cheese, which will last from round to round and give you a little bit more freedom. It doesn't feel good when you need to build a cave because you've created too many people and you don't have anywhere to store them or settle them. They will freeze at night. They're not very brave or warm-blooded. Yeah, you need to be able to provide shelter. You need to be able to upgrade your camp. You need to be able to scale everything at the same time. we have our tracker board over here, which is going to have private and personal objectives to the game, because every scenario, every play of the game is going to have a new framework that you're trying to follow. So me playing cooperatively, there will be public objectives that we have to work together to meet, and then there'll be private objectives that give us extra score if we're playing in a competitive mode. So that's a interesting puzzle here. It's not just always keep everything at bay, it is also meet certain demands and certain conditions that really do change up the game experience. It is hard to meet everything that you need to across the board, which is going to be another thing that I think this title has in common with Spirit Island. Up there, like I've said, is our sacrificial track, and these will change from game to game as well, with new sacrifices, new locations where the spirits are going to be spawning and causing chaos and havoc, and depending on where you've started building your population, you may want to, at the end of every round, sacrifice wood, manure, or hay in order to go ahead and generate fire so that the seers will help you predict what's coming next. This is a chance to look into the future, but it's at great expense and great cost, because those resources do not come cheaply. But sometimes the consequences of not knowing what is coming down the line significantly greater than whatever it was to pay in just to get a little bit of a glimpse. And that's the core structure of this game. Outside of that, like I said, you'll be choosing your different era cards based on how much difficulty you want and how much you want the game to scale. And I really, really love how the board transforms as you play, with floods and earthquakes and volcanoes that erupt and really do transform and change the landscape, splitting islands in half, moving your villagers from one section to another, again, burning up goats and flooding across the space. I want to see expansions for this title that explore all the different types of spirits that you might have, right? Creeping vines that twist and gnarl, turning desert landscapes or pig farms into bushy forests, which is great if you want a lot of wood, but maybe not so good if you're just looking for mud for your pigs to wallow in. I want to see arid, humid landscapes and just different styles of consequences. And speaking of which, the different gods have their own personal flavor text and cards. You can see with the artwork here, and they'll target different areas based on these specifically. Sometimes hunting for goats, breaking over walls, tearing down villagers, sometimes giving you a chance to prevent something by doing things like lighting your hayfields on fire to prevent a larger drought or locust from sweeping in and wiping out the landscape. This has a ton of theme, a ton of depth, really great thinky Euro mechanics. Overall, I am super impressed with Tindaya. I want to keep diving in. Like I said, I am hoping to get a solo gameplay to you, at least possibly a multiplayer gameplay if I'm able to, but the campaign's already live, it's already over on Gamefound, and I thought I'd go ahead and share it with you to give you a closer look and redirect some love and attention here, because I want to unlock some fancy stuff. I'm getting a deluxe copy of this game. I want it as pretty as it can be. And with that, thank you for watching, thank you for being here. Whatever you do, though, remember to do the important thing. Do not trust the spirit. Don't trust them. Don't trust them. They will murder your goats. They will. Not that I know, for any reason, particularly. I'm a little bitter. I'll be honest.